Hello, I'm going to be going over how to create a PXE boot environment that uses iPXE and open source boot firmware that will use Windows PE to install Windows 10 and automatically start the installation process. First, you'd like to make sure that you have a Ubuntu machine already set up. I'm using Ubuntu server in my case. And I already have it installed, so I'll just go ahead and SSH into it. Alright, there's going to be some packages we need to install, but first we'll make sure everything's up to date. And then we'll go ahead and install the TFTP server and Git. Once everything's installed, let's go take a look at the configuration file for the TFTP server. Alright, so here, this is the directory you will have to have in order to access your TFTP files. You can change this to whatever you want, but we'll just leave this the same. So, to start the TFTP, we'll run. And so now our TFTP server should have been started. The next thing we can do is verify that TFTP is actually working. So let's go to the file path that was specified in the config file and create a test file. And so now, if we hop over to another Linux machine, this is another one of my Ubuntu servers. We'll have to install TFTP if you already haven't done so. And this is the TFTP client. It's different than the TFTP D-HPA, which is the actual server. All right, it's done installing, so let's go try it out. We want to get that file that we just created. And this is the IP address of my PXE server that we were just on. And you do not need to specify serve/TFTP because you're going from whatever's inside TFTP. So it's just going to be testing. I think that's what I named it. Yep. And we have received the file. So now we can continue to the next steps, and that's going to be getting and compiling our iPXE boot file. So we'll do a get clone, and we'll go grab file here. And we're going to wait for that to finish. And it looks like it's done. So we will go ahead and go inside. And it says just to go inside source folder and start. So, but instead in our scenario, we're just looking to create the UEFI boot file. So in that case, we'll be doing make bin dash x86 underscore 64 dash EFI forward slash IPXE dot EFI. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention, we do need to install some prerequisites. So let's go ahead and do that. So yes, they're listed right here. Let's go ahead and get those installed. All right, so I've already installed all this stuff. Now let's go ahead and try that again. We're going to try and make that EFI file. And this is going to take some time, so I'll come back later. All right, so that is done. Let's go ahead and create our required folders in our TFTP server. So we're going to make an iPXE directory. This is where we're going to be putting the boot file along with the script that's going to be used. Let's go and grab that EFI file. And I don't know where it is, so let's go look for it. I'm going to use the find command. And it looks like it's right here. So let's copy this. To our TFTP iPXE folder. And let's go change directories into the TFTP iPXE folder. And we're going to go ahead and create our script now. And we'll use the name autox.ipxe. And I've already got this on a notepad, so I can just copy and paste this in there. And we can use this for testing purposes. So right here, where it says set boot URL, you're going to have to put in the IP address of your PXE server or your TFTP server. And here's just some menu prompts. After 8 seconds, it's automatically going to launch the shell. Or actually, I apologize, not the shell. Automatically, it's going to boot to the hard disk. So, if you want to, you can go ahead and test it out on a computer. You'll have to make sure that its BIOS is set to UEFI mode and that secure boot is off. So once that's set, you can go ahead and do the UEFI IPv4 network boot. But before you can actually do that, you'll have to configure your DHCP server. So I'm using Windows Server as my DHCP server. So let's go ahead and open that up. So this is very simple because it's just a test home network for messing around. So you'll choose IPv4 because that's what we're talking about right now. And you'll look for your current scope, the scope that you want to use, and you'll go to your scope options. And you can go ahead and right click in the free space and configure options. And we're going to look for option 66. Boot server host name. So in this case, you can actually just put in the IP address of your TFTP server. And then you're also going to want to add an option, option 67, boot file name. And we're looking for our iPXE.efi. So we're going to go inside the iPXE folder. on our TFTP server and look for iPXE.EFI. And apply those changes. And you're going to go and open up your services. I'll just show you how to do that, I guess. And you'll want to look for your DHCP server. And you'll right click on it, and you'll restart it. All right, so once that has restarted, let's go ahead and test this out just to make sure that iPXE is working and that we get a boot menu. So I'm going to minimize this. This is Proxmox. This is a host. That doesn't really matter because you can do this on a physical machine. This is just for demonstration purposes, so you can see. So you can see it started the PXE over IPv4. It's got the boot file, iPXE.EFI, and iPXE has booted into the boot menu. So we don't have a disk in this at all because this is just for testing purposes. And you can go to the shell and you can do stuff in the shell. So you know at least iPXE is working, and we can move on to the next part, and it's going to be setting it up so it works with Windows PE. So let's get started with Windows PE. So as you can see here, we've basically got two steps. I'm just going to go through them. You can go through and read Microsoft's documentation all you'd like. I'm just going to go through the minimum required steps to get up and running. I already have everything installed for this. I already have these development kits installed. So we will go ahead and start them. All right, so I've started the deployment and imaging tools environment as administrator, just like Microsoft's documentation states, and we'll go ahead and get started. Most of the stuff is actually on their site, so I'll just go ahead and try and show you. So they've got a lot of the commands I use are pulled straight from here. And there's a lot of extra in here, but I'm just going to go over the minimum. Right now I'm just copying and pasting what I have on my notepad for the minimum to get stuff working. I'll go ahead and paste all the commands I used in this video in the description, so you don't have to worry about typing all this out. And here I'll explain a little bit on this part. Startnet.cmd. This is what auto runs basically. Right now I already have some stuff in here because I've already been messing with it. So none of this will be in here for you guys. So what this does, this first line here, sets the computer into high performance mode. This here maps a network drive. I do have a Windows 10 installation out on a network drive already. So that's what we're doing with this. We go inside of that drive and we run the setup.exe with the unattended XML. And this is basically the configurations used to auto run everything on the install. So you guys will need to add these lines here. You can change your drive letter to whatever you want. Your network file share could be in a different location. So mine's on my NAS server under the public folder, and I'm going to go inside of the Windows 10 folder. Now, if you're having trouble, try doing an IP here, just in case the name does not resolve on your network. Again, most of this is straight from Microsoft's documentation, so I'm just doing a lot of copying and pasting here. And I'm removing this folder that we created. That way we can do the next steps, because I noticed I had some issues because it already existed. And we can go ahead and make the ISO, the WinPE ISO. So it's complete, and we're going to go check out the ISO. So we actually don't need everything that's in there. It's going to be under our C drive. As we can see right here, C drive, WinPE AMD64, WinPE underscore AMD64.ISO. That's what we're looking for. So we'll go browse out to it. You've got that right there. And we can go ahead and mount this so you can look at the files inside. And now I'll go ahead and open up a new terminal inside this folder. And I'm going to do some more copying and pasting from a notepad that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these files over from the ISO location to our PXE TFTP server, to the TFTP location. And actually, before we do that, it might be a bit cleaner if we do this. That way the files are a little bit more organized. So we'll also go ahead and remove this testing because we don't need that anymore. Do it sudo. And we'll make a directory. And we'll call it Windows 10 Auto, or just Windows 10. We'll just call it Windows 10. Oh, sudo. This may or may not work, so I may have to change the permissions. Yep, permission denied. So let's go ahead and do this. So let's see. It looks like I'll just do this. This is a cheap way of doing this because it's not the best way. You're basically giving everybody read, write, and execute access to this directory, but we'll go ahead and do this for simplicity. Oops. And now we'll be able to run this command and copy over the files. So SCP is basically how you move files using SSH, in case you didn't know that. And so I've moved those files over. Next set of files we'll do. So let's also do, we're going to put these actually going to be putting these, we're going to make a directory here as well inside of the Windows 10. So let's go inside Windows 10 and make a directory and call it boot. We're going to copy these files to our TFTP iPXE server, or PXE server, to the Windows 10 boot folder. And this one will take some time, boot.wim. So we'll come back in a few seconds and continue from there. There's also one more file we'll have to grab from iPXE's website. So let's go ahead and do that. And that's the wimboot file. So this is going to let us boot into Windows PE. So let's go ahead and download that. Alright, so I already had it downloaded. Let's go ahead and move that over. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder. We're going to copy the wimboot file to our TFTP server. And we're going to be putting this file just in the Windows 10 folder. Now we're going to need to modify that script that creates the boot menu. So on our TFTP server, we'll need to go back to that iPXE folder. And we'll be editing the autox.ipxe. So here we can just go to the bottom here, add some space there, entering a few more lines. I do have this in a notepad on my other screen, so I'm just gonna make some quick modifications and paste it in there. So alright, while I was about to copy and paste the boot menu, I saw a file that I forgot to move over. So let's go ahead and do that before we forget. And that was that bootx64.efi. I forgot to move that over. We're going to be putting this just in the Windows 10 folder on the TFTP. So now that that has been moved over, we can actually copy and paste this part of the menu. So this is the Windows 10 install. You'll want to make sure that you have all these. We'll also go ahead and add a line item in the menu. So if you add it to the top with this current configuration, it'll be the default. So let's go ahead and add it. So we'll do Control S to save it. And we'll do Control X to close it. Now let's go and try it out. So I'll go ahead and start this. Let's go check it out. And it looks like we have an option here for the Windows 10 install. Now, I'll clarify this. I've actually already done it. This is going to be kind of dependent on how your network is set up. I'll just do a run through of it real quick. So remember how I mentioned that this is actually on a network drive, the Windows 10 installer is. So I actually have it mapped here as my Y drive. So I have a folder out there called Windows 10, and this is all from that startnet.cmd that I was talking about earlier. And it's going to go ahead and map this drive. It's going to go inside of here. And this is where you basically copy and paste everything that's in the ISO. Only difference is I had to add an unattend.xml in here. So I will also have that pasted as well, so you don't have to go through and retype it manually. So we'll just go ahead and open this. Just so you can take a brief look at what's going on inside of here. So I've got it automatically accepting the EULA. Basically trying to go through everything automatically. I've noticed with this current setup, I do have to select, even though I did paste the product key in here, I still have to show, it shows the UI, which I have to press enter on to select the Windows 10 Pro for some reason. And it comes down, and we're also going to format the disk. And I also do have to select which partition of the disk I want to use to install Windows. So it's not completely automatic, I just have to press enter twice. But I'll also paste this down so you guys can have that too. But for this, just in case you're a complete newbie, what you would do is you would mount your ISO. So I've mounted my ISO from my downloads folder. What I would basically do is I'd just Control A, Control C. I would copy all that to my folder that I created on the network share, and I would just paste it. This network share, for demonstration purposes, of course, does not have any security on it. So anybody can come in here and see it. Typically, you'd have some sort of service account that has access to the file share. But this is just on my home network, and I'm just doing this for messing around. So I don't really care if it's secure, and I'm the only one here looking at it. And there's nothing secure. There's nothing important on here anyways. It's just a Windows 10 installer. So with that being said, we can go back to our iPXE and try and get the Windows 10 install to start. Now this may not work because I don't think I put a hard disk in this VM. Go look. I did. So we can go ahead and try it out. This is my first rodeo with this. I've never done this before. Oops. And as you can see, it grabbed the files over TFTP on under the Windows 10 folder, winboot, boot manager.efi, boot x64.efi, and then it went inside the boot folder and grabbed the rest. And we'll wait for this to finish. TFTP is typically slower than other protocols. iPXE can also do HTTP, and I think it can also do HTTPS. So that would be quicker. If you'd prefer that route, I'm just doing TFTP because it's the good old-fashioned way. And you've got your Windows or WinPE booting up here, and you can see the script automatically ran, and it's saying it cannot find the drive, and this might be because it's in the VM like this. I know there are some issues when trying to do PXE boot over the VM. So let's do, yeah, it cannot find the NAS. So like I said, if this errors out, if you go back to the steps where you're building your WinPE ISO, instead of putting your host name in there, you can put in a different name. So let's go ahead and try putting in the IP. Network location. Oh, I also, maybe it could be it for drivers. So I've never done this before on the virtual machine. I'm trying to show you how it would work. But you're seeing in real time that it's not working. So can I even ping it? Just go over some basic troubleshooting. If this doesn't work within the next few seconds, I might just splice in a video of it working on a laptop that I have. Yeah, it looks like there is maybe some issues here with the drivers, or maybe there's an issue with my virtual network. So we'll ignore that, and I will splice in what it's supposed to look like. So you don't have to worry about this. This is when it gets more complex, is when you start messing around with the virtual environments.